Hello and welcome back to the Sanders Review. My name is Caleb Sanders, and today we're going to be jumping into a spoiler-free review of a book which I just read recently. I haven't seen the movie which they made, but that is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. If you've been living under a rock for the last decade or so, you may have never heard of the Hunger Games, but if you do know about Hunger Games, then you know that this YA sci-fi series by Suzanne Collins is a cultural and literary phenomena which has really come to define that genre. Now, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is the prequel which picks up 65 years before the Hunger Games take place. This prequel really does continue Suzanne Collins' efforts to try to explore the impact of war and trauma and PTSD on especially young people. The book is called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but the recent movie was called The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, trying to, cash in a little bit on the Hunger Games name. I haven't actually seen the movie yet, so I am basing this purely off of just when I read the book just recently and my enjoyment of some parts, but also some things that didn't connect well for me. Some of my students actually love this book. A couple of them were messing with me back before Christmas break. So I took Christmas break to read this book and get them off my back a little bit. One really successful element of this Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is that Suzanne Collins, you can clearly see, has improved in her writing style. I would say, having reread Hunger Games this last year and reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, you can definitely see a growth in her description, in her literary prose, which I really found appealing, because the books, the original Hunger Games books, on the reread could get a little stale at times. This one I felt was very clear and to the point, and was a very enjoyable read. It's fascinating to read a book that's a prequel following the rise of Snow, that guy, and his rise to not power in this book, but definitely you see the precursor of who he is to become in the Hunger Games books. This book begins 10 years following the war in which the Capitol won and created the district system, also creating the Hunger Games system to try to make the districts recall and remember how futile it is to be able to fight against the Capitol. The games themselves look extremely different. They're very stripped down, very minimal, and they really don't have a large following, and that's where this book picks up with Snow. That's what we'll say from now on. With Snow becoming a advisor for one of the district's tributes. The games themselves are very player versus player. You don't see a lot of the creations of the Capitol coming to play in these Hunger Games as much, but this book shows the beginning of what the Hunger Games will become when we get to the 74th, 75th Hunger Games. I believe, if I remember, this one is the 10th Hunger Games that is being highlighted at the time of this book. The reader really does experience the Hunger Games through the eyes of Snow and through his friends, if you could call them those, around him, although it does get up close and personal at times. That is a stark contrast, I would say, from the Hunger Games books, and that was one of the most successful part of the Hunger Games books, was jumping in with Katniss and observing and seeing just the horror of what the Hunger Games were in that third-person present mode, whereas in this book, you're a little removed from that. Relationships are a very key part of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Beginning with Snow, you get to know his grandma, his grandmam, and she grows roses, which it's very rare and special if somebody can actually wear a rose, which we see that maybe as a call back to the Hunger Games. You also have his sister, who Snow has a very close relationship with, and you see that played out very quickly in the books from the very beginning. As I said, Snow has some friends at his school where he can barely afford to maintain this image of wealth, because his father having died, mother having died, they're living on pennies, basically, trying to just maintain this almost mythical stance among capital society of snow. In fact, the phrase "snow lands on top" is the phrase that constantly gets reused. This idea that Snow and his family, through maybe a series of events, might still be able to rise up in preeminence and power again. That's the hope with Snow being a advisor for this 10th Hunger Games. Some of his friends end up having to be his competition as advisors. Another friend is the son of a district trader, and he is constantly trying to buy his way almost into the capital society. So you see that conflict a little bit between old money or no money and new money in this new war-torn capital. And then finally, you have the representative from District 12. Yes, District 12 makes an appearance again. Lucy Gray Baird, who he has to advise and try to help be successful in the Hunger Games. As the book progresses, there are a series of things that happen in which you start to see the precursor and the evolution of the Hunger Games begin to take place. I won't go into any spoilers, obviously, but you start seeing an advancement of how the people themselves of the capital of the districts could become involved with the Hunger Games themselves. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes does a really good job of re-exploring the topics of PTSD and of family trauma as a result of war, and that is done successfully. Now, as the book progresses, Snow goes through his journey relationally and politically, socially, as things start to take place, and as the book draws to a close, we see Snow in, for us, a familiar setting, as he has to come to terms with who he's becoming and what he believes in regards to the Hunger Games and the place of the capital in society. Now, some criticisms that I personally have for this book is, as successful as it is in exploring Snow and his transformation, did we need a backstory for this character? This villain from the original trilogy who you love to hate, who you almost cheer when he falls from power, do we need that backstory? He was already a hated character, so why should we seek or need to understand who he is and how he got there? He's almost one of those characters in the original Hunger Games that he is a perfect villain to be opposed by District 13 and by Katniss Everdeen. The characters in the book are not as personable, and so we as readers may not be as invested in the outcome of this story. Another thing about this book is highlighting this other main character, Lucy Gray Baird, being a itinerant singer who is traveling around the districts before the war happened. Songs and bluegrass style lyrics become a very key cornerstone of this book. And without music, it feels a little much. You almost feel at some point, oh, here's another song, here's another song. And you kind of lose the investment when you feel like you have to analyze these songs for their lyricism, for their portrayal of characters and themes. It's a little off-putting. You almost wish there was a QR code that you could scan and listen to the song and maybe have it be a little more relatable. But for me personally, the songs were just maybe 2 to 3 too many throughout this book. My main criticism was with how this book ends. You feel as if you're going on this journey, and it has such an abrupt turn to the tone and the plot and the relationships in the story. It feels a little undeserved in how quickly things just transpire and end. And we see Snow in the final pages stepping towards his legacy, stepping towards his future. It just feels so abrupt that you as a reader are left a little disappointed. It needed another 50 pages or so, or split into 2 books. I could maybe see that even taking place and being successful. I personally give this book a rating of around 3.5. I would have given it a solid 4 to 4.5, but for me, the ending and the number of songs and just the fact that not feeling as if we actually needed this story to fully be told drops it down for me into about a 3.5 out of 5. These are all my personal kind of musings about this book. If you have read this book in Hunger Games, please let me know in the comments where you agree or disagree with me. Maybe some of your favorite portions of the book, spoiler free, for anybody who hasn't read the book yet. I would recommend that you read it. I feel like everyone should read it. And for me, it's just something that I just won't be rereading because the story, while it completes a character, it's not something which I'm going to really be interested in revisiting personally. That's it for this quick review. I just got over being sick recently, and so that's why it took a little longer for this one to come out. I'm going to have another review coming out this weekend, and so I look forward to you watching that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you like, subscribe, share, comment, all of those things, because I really do enjoy connecting with anybody who is interested in helping me as I just kind of explore these books and this literature. Tagged up here is going to be my very first video introducing myself and my channel, along with my last video on Terry Pratchett's iconic beginning to Discworld, The Color of Magic. We'll see you later on the Sanders Review.